So we're going to start out here with just a brief overview about the Poison Center. As you see there, there are actually 55 poison centers in the United States. They are regional poison centers. Every state does not have a poison center. So for example, Minnesota has one. We are contracted by North Dakota and South Dakota to be their poison centers. But Iowa and Wisconsin have their own. Places like Kansas, Idaho, they contract with other people. California has 3. Texas has 5 because everything's big in Texas. But the whole idea is that we're regional and we have relationships with all the hospitals that are around us. And so we're really a good resource as far as that goes. We're also familiar with the flora and the fauna, which are fancy words for basically the critters and the plants that are within our area, and mushrooms and those sorts of things, which helps us go ahead and more effectively manage those. Probably most of our calls from the group that I'm speaking to today, a lot of farmers and such in agriculture, are the inadvertent vaccine sticks when they're vaccinating cattle. And those are usually not a big deal unless it happens to be Micotil or Tilmicacin. Then we get a little worked up about that. So if you ever use Tilmicacin or Micotil and you get a stick with it, or you get some in your eye, you need to call us because you can have a cardiac arrest. So that's one of the big ones that's a hot button for us. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started here. Just a little bit more about the Poison Center. This number is a national number. If you dial that number anywhere from in the United States, it will get you to your regional poison center. If you dial that number from Minnesota, North Dakota, or South Dakota, the way that it works is it actually reads the area code that you're calling from and directs you to your appropriate regional poison center. Okay, so why are we frozen here? Always something. All right, well, I guess it's not going to play with us here. There we go. All right, so some key facts about us. Last year, just the state of Minnesota took 46,000 calls. And a vast majority of those, as you might imagine, were people calling from their home setting or their work settings. Interestingly enough, 28% of the calls that we get out of that 46,000 are actually doctors. So if you or a loved one happens to go to an emergency room with some type of toxicological exposure, an overdose, a med air, something like that, about a third of the doctors are going to go in the back room and call us to manage it. The reason is because I'm not the brightest bulb, but I know how to do 2 things. I know how to breathe and I know toxicology. And so because of that, a lot of doctors aren't very good on their toxicology because we're ever changing as far as our treatment modalities go. And so they rely upon us. So the other big thing about this is that you see 92% of the time, the exposure is occurring in the residential setting. If you call us from the home, 92% of the time we can keep you there, which frees up precious resources in hospitals. It allows you not to go ahead and have to pay a copay, and it keeps everybody happier. And you know, I've been doing EMS for 26 years, fire EMS for 26 years, and I've been a nurse at the Poison Center for just over 20 years now. And before I got over to the Poison Center side of things, I thought a lot of things would cause harm to people, that a lot of things are really super toxic. And the reality is there's very few things that are so toxic they're going to cause significant illness or death in one taste amount, or one inhalation amount, or something like that. And as you might imagine, most of our kids, 39% of our cases from the home setting are kids under the age of 6, right? You don't have to know Paget's theory of natural childhood development to figure out that, oh, if the Cool Waters cologne looks pretty, well, it looks pretty, smells pretty, must taste pretty. And then you're doing like what Elf did, you know, I was like, it tastes terrible kind of thing. They usually self-limit. All right, so we are, out of the 55 poison centers, we're one of only 2 that staff almost exclusively with pharmacists. I'm the only nurse there, so I'm kind of the token nurse, but that's fine. They've accepted me. But you're really getting a high level of service. A lot of the other poison centers have nurses, and obviously being a nurse, I'm biased, but they just don't simply have the advanced training that we have. And I mean, I'm a 2-year nurse. I'm not knocking 2-year nurses, but I just got a 2-year degree. I didn't get very good pharmacology. Everything I've learned is on the job. And so we have pharmacists here that have done their undergrad for 4 years and then 4 years of pharmacy school. So, you know, you got a lot of people on a lot of meds now, and they understand all this stuff. And so we're a really good resource for med air or something like that. And then we're 24/7. We give you media assistance. We are confidential. It's just like talking to your doctor. So we are HIPAA compliant, and we're free of charge. So we're not there to get anybody in trouble. So let's jump into different types of cleaning products. And hopefully this isn't too technical, but kind of the big overview is that there's a lot of things that disinfect out there, and they're out there in higher numbers. And so there's 3 different ways that we can go ahead and decontaminate things as far as bacteria, pathogens and those sorts of things. And that's using peroxides that are semi-related to like the 3% hydrogen peroxide in the brown bottle you get from CVS, in that family of types of things. What it does is it oxidizes things, releases oxygen so that that organism dies. That's kind of in a nutshell how that works. Then there's detergents, and there's strong detergents and weak detergents, and those can be helpful. And then there's chlorides. So the most common chloride that you would know about would be like bleach would be the most common type, and that's sodium hypochlorite. And so we're using a lot of these different things. We are running, so a lot of times the chloride products have run out. Clorox wipes are hard to find now. They're not due to be restocked in stores. They just saw an article until 2021. And so we have to move on to other different types of treatments. And it really doesn't matter which one it is as far as the user goes, but it can go ahead and be problematic for kids that get into it, for adults that are using it frequently who are not maybe protecting their hands or using the product in the correct way. So this is kind of one of the most common things. And this particular product actually has no bleach in it whatsoever. This is actually a detergent that's cationic based. So basically, brief chemistry, it's got a plus after it. And if it's neutral as a negative, it really doesn't interact with our tissue very much, doesn't cause many problems. But if it's got a plus after it, it can actually cause burns and those sorts of things if left on there too long, and depending on the concentration. Now I know like in dairy farms and stuff that this is this type of product is used as sanitizers. So if you ever have something that's a sanitizer, it's probably what we call a quaternary ammonium product. Big long words, complicated stuff. I can barely pronounce it myself. But if you look on the active ingredients and it says something, something ammonium, something, something ammonium, there's 4 different types of ammoniums in there, and that's the cationic detergent that kills things. These generally are pretty safe. Once in a while, we'll get a kid who drinks the bottle's empty, and I go, oh, let's try this, and they drink it. They go to the hospital sometimes, but by and large, they generally don't need to. Call us first unless the child is having difficulty breathing, or the person who accidentally drank it has difficulty breathing, or they're having salivation, they're not able to speak. Call us first, because 92% of the time we can prevent a needless emergency room visit. And if by chance we decide you need to go in, we can call ahead to that hospital, bypass most of that COVID stuff, and tell that doctor how to treat you immediately and what you should be prioritized as, which is probably the more important part, so we can get you in and be seen more effectively. The other part of this is peroxide based. And so I gotta look at my timer here. Oh, geez. Peroxide based. And so basically what this does is liberate oxygen. So give us a call about these. Hydrogen peroxides at 3% and less are not a big deal, actually less than 10%. If you get above 10% hydrogen peroxide, it can cause serious problems. So give us a buzz if you get exposed to these. Then the big one I want to hit home is lots of these hand sanitizers, you get different people manufacturing them. The upper picture looks like it's medicine almost, like the measuring cup in NyQuil. It's not meant, I don't know why they're doing that, but so people think that they should drink it. And then of course we have certain people in our government that say you should ingest it or inject it. And as silly as that seems, and as common sense as it should be, that that's not a way you do it, there's a certain amount of people who will go ahead and try that. So they wind up getting in trouble. So the packaging mimics things like medicine. Here on the left-hand side, you see things that look like water bottles. And then of course the big one is we're seeing lots of methanol now. If you drink these hand sanitizers and they're regular ethanol, 72% ethanol, that actually is alcohol. It just tastes like crap if you want to drink it. It'll get you intoxicated. But the problem is that now there's methanol in there, and it doesn't say that it is, and methanol is a totally different ballgame. And they're not even packaging them appropriately. And every single day the FDA is adding to their recall list things that contain methanol, even though it says ethanol. If you ingest 1 tablespoon, 15 mLs, 1 big mouthful of a methanol containing product, and sometimes you don't know it, you have to be seen, because it can destroy your kidneys. It can cause blindness. It's very, very serious. So if you have anybody who's purchased and anybody accidentally ingests more than a mouthful, and that's happened, you need to call the Poison Center, even if it says ethanol in there, because we need to go ahead and find out when it was purchased. We need to send you to a hospital, and there's only 2 hospitals in Minnesota that can actually go ahead and get methanol levels. And that's here at Hennepin Healthcare, which is where the state's Poison Center is out of. They're our host institution. We are a nonprofit institution. And then Mayo. And our relationship with Mayo's lab is hit or miss. And so if you can't go ahead and get a hold of us, and we can't get a level to Hennepin Healthcare within 6 hours, you're going to go ahead and get treated with a vial of something that costs about $8,000. You're going to be in ICU for 3 days, and we're going to go ahead and monitor serial labs. So our part in this is understanding what the lab capabilities are. But what I need you guys to know is if anybody accidentally swallows a mouthful of this stuff, even if it says ethanol on it, you need to call us. and then we're going to go through a protocol and triage that. And then there might be a possibility you might have to go to hospital, and you may be transferred to a bigger hospital. So this has really become a huge headache and a problem for us. So kind of a sum up here, cleaning products are meant for hard surface use generally. Don't eat, drink, inject, or spray on the skin. I know there's some concern about these methanol products actually causing, absorbing through the skin and causing toxicity. If you really look at the FDA, it kind of alludes to that, but that's not really what happens. We are not concerned about significant absorption, even with chronic use of methanol containing products through the skin. That simply isn't going to be a concern, even though there's some allusion to that in the FDA and the CDC's verbiage. Open windows during use when you're using cleaning products. Fumes, even though they're not toxic, can cause headache, nausea. If somebody has asthma, can trigger an asthma attack. Never mix cleaning products. Okay, we get that a lot. You can form chlorine, chloramine gas, and those gases can be dangerous. And then follow all the directions and warnings with each use. So look at the product label. If there's questions, give us a call. So if you want to wash your hands, soap and water is the best, the best. Some hand sanitizers have, we talked about this, ETOH is regular alcohol or methanol. Read labels, follow instructions. And the other thing is store these things up high and out of sight. If Billy looks up and he doesn't see it, he's not going to climb for it. If it's down low, lock it up. That's the best way to go ahead and prevent inadvertent exposures to this. The other thing is keep things in original containers. Farmers are terrible about this. Keep it in an original container, or go ahead, oh, there's my timer for 12 minutes. Keep it in original containers or clearly mark it. With that, I want to thank you very much. If you have questions, I'll be here at the end of the other two speakers. And once again, thanks for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us, Kirk. This was a particularly timely presentation given everything that's going on right now. So great information. I'm glad that you could be here with us.
Thanks for having me.
I think we have time for a question or two if anybody wants to hop in quick. But otherwise, we've got a booth for the Minnesota Poison Control Center. So anything you want to call out in particular that folks could find in your booth that might be helpful?
Basically, is the number. If you have a question, it doesn't have to be an emergency to call us. Feel free to give us a call if you have questions about anything tox related. We're happy to answer those. If we do say that we're busy and we have a 911 call, that'll take precedence over a question, but we're happy just to have you call in if you have a question about anything, whether it's an emergency or non-emergency. But that number is the biggest thing that we want you to use.
That's great to know. And it was great to hear you talk about some of those products that are, you know, in the news and being used arguably more frequently nowadays. So thank you for that, Kirk.
You're welcome.